Hey guys, Ethan from Zimmer Labs here to do a quick video of Ian's Graflex that I just finished up. This is a really nice masterpiece style Graflex. We did, let's see, I'm going to focus it in a little bit for you. Alright, so we did a Roman's Graflex flash gun, Slothfurnace clamp card. This is a Solos hold blade holder, which is really cool. It's got all the little details. I'm not sure if you can catch it, but there are metal pieces inside of the little slots to be totally accurate to the real Graflex. It's a two-piece, so that the top and bottom section separate, so you can pull the inside out. It's got nice short Graflex pins that don't catch the hilt when you try to slide it out, so you can actually get it out without pulling the pins. Nice brass strips, nice glass eye, which is actually the blade retention in this. Got a nice slide switch that has bounce to it, and then obviously activation up here. Pop it open, you just release the clamp, twist, and reveal. We did a Goth master chassis, printed in all rhodium and 18 karat gold. The big honkin' quartz crystal in there. The plastic parts were done in a iron finish, and then rubbed to be as metallic as is possible. We have a 4-ohm premium bass speaker from KR. Hidden recharge port behind the door, as well as a kill switch to eliminate the need for a kill key. So that's how you turn it on. Close the door, and let's release. Take out the glass eye, which we did a plastic or a poly insert here to act as the retention, but also to more easily pass the light through the glass eye. And then what I did was I polished the poly or plastic piece to a shine to really let the light pass through, because when these come from Shapeways, they're just a flat matte bumpy plastic, so that's obviously not going to pass a lot of light through, and it just doesn't look real good. So just sandpaper. I think I did 1,000 grit, 2,000 grit, 4,000, and 6,000, and then I used my bench grinder with a cotton buffer and some automotive buffing compound to put the final finish on that. But that's that, and then you simply slide her out. Like I said, this is the Solos hold blade holder, so it's got the shorty pins. And then Ian also picked up these printed Solos hold button cable covers, which are totally just an extra. They're a nice touch because it makes the whole thing look a lot cleaner. You don't really see any wires except for right here where it goes from the blade holder to the chassis. But otherwise, there's basically not a single wire to be seen in this guy. As far as what we did, we put a teensysaber in. That's here. And if anyone is saying, hey, this looks a little different, the chassis has been redesigned. So if you guys are going to get one off Shapeways, don't be surprised if it shows up looking like this. This is the main change, but before, this section looked nothing like this. There was no cover for the sound card. So the sound card was just sitting here, and you could see it. It was visible, and I don't have a problem with that. But evidently, some people did. So Goth redesigned this section so that this is a door that simply clips on. It clips to the screw post, as well as a metal 1.5 millimeter metal post here and here. It's the same one that holds this door in place. This long guy goes all the way from here through the door, so that the door swings on that. But there's just enough room to get a teensysaber in there. But in addition, not only did we do that, we did strips of neopixels on both sides and a 2170 Samsung battery, which you can see if you open this door. Well, not really. If you look through here, you can read the serial numbers and everything on the battery. I did that so you could tell what it was more easily, otherwise you really don't see the battery. But at any rate, that's a 5,000 milliamp hour or 5 amp hour battery, which is really a massive battery and will make this saber run for considerably longer, maybe twice as long as a 18650. Maybe not twice as long, but certainly it's at least a 50% upgrade. So this is also your USB and SD card access. I have a cable that I built specifically for this guy that is not a right angle, but a 45 degree USB cable that more easily allows you to plug in. Because if you're trying to plug in and connect it to a computer, it's going to want to go right here, straight in, and this piece is going to be in the way. So this right here is really easy to do. You can either just take a standard USB cable, apply some heat from a heat gun to it, and just bend the tip. 20% of the time you're going to break the cable, but 80% of the time you're going to succeed in putting an angle to it. That's really all you have to do, but rather than that, I actually built this cable from a tip off a dead cable that I had and a section of wiring, and then I just solidified it with some hot glue and some heat shrink wrap. So this guy's totally insulated and rock solid. But this is something that you guys might need if you were to do a build like this, so that you can actually more easily plug in, because you don't want to have a straight cable that's putting strain on this plug or pulling the sound card up, because that's how you can cause damage to the internals. You know, there's all wires underneath here connecting all the different parts of the saber to the board, and the less you pull on the board, the less likely you are to ever experience any problems with it. So, that being said, let's run through it. Activation button here, and as you see, we did another neopixel cycle down here. So we've got a spin up, spin down again, with a initial white color that goes to blue to match the blade. So when you fire up and ignite the saber, this is the effect. So it ramps up and down. I like to think of it as a power core that's kind of a generator, turbine effect type of internals that power the crystal, which in turn powers the blade. Obviously, none of that actually happens, but yeah, it's a fun way to think about it. I'm going to go ahead and pop the cover back on. That just, like I said, clicks in. It sits nice and flush. I'll toggle through a couple blades, but let me put the blade plug in. Ian opted to go not with the magnetic connector, but with the more traditional, newer custom saber shop blade connector. So we've got pogo pins inside here, no built-in blade plug, so no LEDs inside here. So we put them in here. I really do like how this guy fits too. Like, the build quality of that connector is just great. I love the spring action to it. Additionally, this blade connector is a much more accurate Graflex build. It's got the spring-loaded pin in it. Doesn't really do anything aside from just be more screen accurate, more reality accurate to the original Graflex. because the original flash, this was spring-loaded. So we pop that guy in there, apply a little pressure, and lots of shine through. Put the glass eye in. That's what it's looking like, and if it's installed into the hilt with the glass eye. That's blaster blocks right there. Now let's put the blade in. And I'll run through some of the different blade presets and fonts we did. This is a 35 or 36 inch long blade, polished and rounded on the end with the TCSS connector. That just slides in. It's a nice snug fit. Actually, before we get there, I want to show you guys a couple things. For starters, here is the internals of this blade plug. So, the internals is essentially an LED, or it's essentially a light bulb made out of LEDs. That was the effect and the intent of the build. So it's one strip that goes up and around and back down. Three pixels on either side of the stem, and then when you get to the top bulb section, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 5th and 6th on the sides. So that way, this gets as much possible light inside of it, radiating out as I could possibly jam in there. Like, there really isn't a lot of space going on in here. And because of the design of this spring-loaded pin, for whatever reason, you don't get a lot of light shine through coming up this way that you would see from this angle, which is the most important angle, really. So, initially when I built this, I just did 2 strips going up and down, and it just didn't look good at all. So now we get this effect, which, as you can see, is still not quite as bright as you'd like it to be from the top. It's great from over here. Fantastic. But this is 4 or 5 times brighter than it was originally before I did this build. The next thing I want to show you guys is this is what's going on inside the blade. Ian had sent me all the parts to do this build. He did a really good job picking everything up and sending it to me. He got from Adafruit 2 strips of the 144 pixels per meter neopixels, but he did not get the 50/50 skinny ones. I'll show you what I mean. These are your standard neopixels that most people use for builds, especially if you're doing a 7/8 inch blade, because they're really thin, so they're easy to get inside there. These are the ones he sent me. So as you can see, they're just about twice as wide, which means there really is not a lot of room to get them inside this blade. I mean, they take up essentially 80% of the blade. But you'll notice that there is a whole lot of extra material here that can be trimmed away. So all the material underneath the little resistors here going this way, and all the material at the top section right up into the solder legs can be trimmed away. And that's what we did. It's not super easy to see on the picture. But it shows how much, this shows you how much can be trimmed away. So you can go right up to the resistor and right up to the solder legs. In this section right here, I didn't get right up to the solder legs, but over here, if you notice there, I did. After I took this picture, I did retrim and get everything off there, but you can go right up to the solder legs and right up to the resistor, and that's fine. The strips will still work just fine. You're not going to damage them to a point where they don't work. And this mess down here is all the excess material that got trimmed away. And this is what the blade looked like after the trimming, the building, and the heat shrink wrapping. So you can see that the blade is a whole lot thinner now. Still not this thin, but that's because the individual LEDs actually on this strip are bigger. I mean, significantly bigger, probably twice the size. This is the mini skinny and this is the standard. I mean, the LEDs are just bigger. They're spaced closer together than these, and the LEDs themselves are twice as big, which means that your pixel density is actually significantly more dense. Even though they're the same amount of pixels per meter, they're twice as big. I'm not positive that overall the blade is any brighter if you use these guys trimmed. If you don't trim it, the blade is definitely inferior because you get two really drastic shadows because of the width of this stuff, whereas with this you don't get much shadowing at all because it's so thin. But after trimming this, you don't get any shadows and you get a really bright blade, which I will show you guys now. So thanks for walking through the silly science part with me. I know it's not real interesting or fun, but important stuff nonetheless. That was blue to begin with. So I'm spinning the blade right now for you guys. And as you can see, there really isn't any shadowing. So, the first two blades are blue. Blade 3 is a blue fire blade. Then green. A green spark, a green flash, and then a green fire blade. And this is a yellow sunlight audio flicker blade with a blue flash on clash. This is a really intense flicker, again sunlight color. This is what I like to call the blood orange blade, because that's really, it's hard to tell in the video, but in real life the color of this is very deep orange with a touch of red to it, right in the core. Yeah, unfortunately you can't see it so well, but if you look in the reflection of the monitor, maybe. It's definitely a lot truer to the color. Next up is a cycle blade, or a Tron blade if you will. That one's in blue. Next one is green, I believe. I need to tweak the settings because the blade effects are not present in the cycle blades where they should be. This is one of my new favorites. This is the unicorn blade. It's like a cycle blade, but it goes from a blood orange color to a rainbow preset color, but it does so in using the color cycle effect to get there. And the delay is long. I think it's 8,000 millisecond ignition time. It's a totally silly blade, but it just is. It shows off the amazing potential of this sound card. I mean, you can really get creative with this guy and build all sorts of crazy blades. Fireblade next. Rainbow blade. Strobe blade. POV blade. Battery indicator blade. And we're back to the beginning. Let's see if I can show you guys what the crystal chamber effects are doing. So everything is fully lit when the blade is lit. When the blade is lit, the crystal mimics whatever the blade's doing. So blaster blocks, you get a white blast effect inside the crystal. The effects don't change what's going on in the 3 cycles here. As you can see, they're just doing what they do, which is spin up and down. So for the green blade, you get a white ignition and a final green color once they spin up. And then once the blade is completely off, you get just a slow cycle through. This is the sunlight yellow audio flicker blade with sunlight yellow cycles to match. It's the blue color cycle blade with matching color cycles going on down here, and the blue crystal chamber to match. The crystal chamber actually cycles just like the blade. So the whole thing in effect together is a pretty cool look. The green one. It's just a really cool look overall if you see the whole thing working in conjunction. I'm going to kill the lights real quick just so we can see it even better. And this saber is just nutty. There's lots of stuff going on. Lots of light. If you look at the palm of my hand, it's glowing pretty intensely strong. There's the unicorn blade. This, I believe, is the fire blade. A pretty intense setup. Next up, Rainbow Blade. Nothing quite as crazy, but pretty cool. This is the POV blade, I believe. Oh, strobe blade, my favorite. Let's do that again. So this is just totally intense. And this is just incredibly bright. I mean, if you have somebody in your family with epilepsy, don't even pull this thing out in their presence. You're just going to send them to the hospital. It's a terrible idea. That's a blade lock-up effect with the strobe blade, which is also great. It just speeds up the strobe effect. Very cool. A blade clash gives you the rainbow, I believe. No, it gives you bright yellow. This is the POV blade or logo blade. It also looks just really cool if you wave it back and forth in the dark, because it looks like a torch of fire that you're swinging around back and forth. If you guys have ever seen videos of people juggling fire or swinging fireballs or anything like that, it's real similar to that, and it's a cool look. And back to the beginning. Let me get lights back on. Alright, I pull the blade, show you guys how it goes together. When you want to put it back in, you simply line it up so that the glass eye hole matches. You want to be sure to get it perfectly lined up, and then you just slide it in. A little pressure required because it's a really snug fit. And sometimes you have to wiggle it a tiny bit because, yeah, I misaimed it. Now we gotta correct the slide tab switch. If you guys can see it, this is the auxiliary slide switch right here, and on the inside, yeah, you can kind of see it there. On the inside, there is a little flat plate that's bent up to contact this little tiny slide switch right here. So you have to make sure that that's aiming straight down. Typically it stays in place, but if you put the internals in slightly out of whack, what happens is that little internal guy spins to the right or left, and then you can't get this in there. If you jam it in, you'll break it. So you have to be real careful when you do that to make sure everything's lined up. And you can do it by looking in the top as you do, just to make sure that the slide switch is in fact where it's supposed to be. And then you just press it up until this guy sits flush with the top half. You can tell by looking in the window with the pins here. And that's exactly where you want it to be right there. Everything lines up nice. And then you want to just put the little glass eye back in, screw it in tight to set this, and now this guy's locked in place. Now you just put the bottom half of the hilt back on, slide it up over the tabs, lock it in, pull it down, lock your clamp, and boom, back together. Release the glass eye a tiny bit so that you can slide your blade plug in. I just love how that bounces. Lock the glass eye in. You got your nice LED blade plug up here. Great shine through on the eye. This is the green fire blade. And you even get a little bit of shine through right here on the Graflex clamp because the Neopixel strips are behind it. That's the only spot. But it's a nice little extra. If that's not something you would like, then you can fix that by just putting a tiny little piece of black electrical tape on the inside of the clamp so that when you slide it over, nothing goes through. Simple as that. Or you could go so far as to use a tiny drop of epoxy to cover this hole on the inside, or some metal tape. By metal tape, I mean this stuff. This is HVAC aluminum metal tape. It's a good thing to use to work with stuff like this because it matches. So if you wanted to fill that hole with something so you didn't see it, this stuff would be perfect for that. I personally like it. Now that that's screwed tight, the blade plug doesn't fall out. If you unscrew this, there she goes. Simple as that. I think that's really all there is to show you guys. This auxiliary button, the way the build works and the way everything's designed is really nice and smooth. If you watch closely, it has a bounce to it. So you're not pushing any real pressure to make this guy slide. This guy just moves up and down like butter. And obviously the red button works really well too. Yeah, I guess that's just about it. I will do a couple quick shots of the blade installed with the full hilt together because we haven't done that yet. But that is essentially the whole thing. Like I said, this is a snug fit. So you want to get that in nice and tight. Oh, and I just goofed because I took the eye out all the way, so here's a good lesson. When installing the blade, you don't want to take the glass eye out all the way, because what happens is when you push the blade in, you unseat the internals and that will slide down too. So you then have to slide them back up. That's all slid up now. Those guys are realigned. But if you leave this in just a bit like that, you can pull the blade or put it in and this part won't move because that's keeping it locked. So that was my mistake, but everything's all good. Excellent shine through on this one. we go, a little more refocused. Alright, so that is about it for this guy. I've also got videos to do in the immediate future of this new Vader build I did, of this Obi-Wan, and of this MK1 from Romans that I just finished as well. This is a weathered version, that's why it looks like this. It's not super shiny at all. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.